Hello and welcome to the Watson Weekend. We are your hosts. I'm Rick Watson.
Hi, it's Jessica Lasewski. We're back again.
Back again. This is your weekly dose of medicine with just enough sugar to make it go down easy. And our goal here is to be your go to place for retail, technology, e commerce news.
Yes, we are not professionals. We keep saying we're trying to get there, but Rick, are we really working at it? What's the
We
here?
are. Look,
Okay.
I'm in a studio now.
Well, you are. You have upped the
One of
game.
us stepped up our game.
I think you just did this intentionally to like the starkness is we're in this whole next level. But
Yeah, I don't know what
back
happened over
at you.
there.
I'm gonna come
Yeah.
back at you next week. The game is on. Touche.
Okay.
You're looking good. I like
We're
it.
both. Thank you. We're gonna do there. Um, Obviously, look, in the last week we saw a lot of executive orders introduced. It makes me think of the e-commerce world. If you were the president of e-commerce, what would be your first executive order?
Oh, it's a really good question. I talked about this as like my faux headline that I wish were true. I think we need in the e-com world to get back to actually helping and providing value add, not just trying to sell stuff. Of course, we need to
What?
sell things at the end
Helping?
of the day, but like I think that there really needs to be a mom hub. Who is helping
Hmm.
moms get their meals ready for the week? Make sure that their kids do more like the personal assistant kind of thing at scale, like helping their kids get preps. Like it never fails. Henry's got some kind of band concert. He's growing like a weed. Of course, his black pants that he rarely ever wears don't fit. And then I'm trying to Amazon them
Yeah.
overnight or
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
there just needs to be some more support for moms and help us like think ahead and get prepared because we're busy and we got a lot going on. What about you,
Look,
Rick?
I could see where you went with the intellectual, like, personal, emotional,
Yeah.
like logical route. I went in the other direction. Um, I My first executive order would be no more freaking spin the dials. If
Oh,
I visit an e-commerce site, I would ban spin the dials.
you don't like the wheel of opportunity.
No, the wheel of opportunity, and this is an epidemic on Shein and Temu and all these freaking places where you can get 50-cent clothing that was produced by authentic labor. Um,
Minimal
yes.
lead.
Minimal lead.
Yeah. So, okay. So you don't like the gamification. You want to like, you're going to command down
Strip
no
it
more
down. Either
gamification.
give me an experience, but don't try to like entertain me. Imagine
Right.
if someone did this when you walk into the store. Hey, you're coming to spin the dial. Like, go f yourself. I'm sorry.
I know. But
Right?
look, I will say if I was on the Price is Right, the game I'd want to play is, the little guy that climbs up the mountain. He's
Oh, that guy was
yeah,
always the best. I
that guy's
love the
the
wheel
best.
thing, the Bob
I
Barker
but you
wheel.
gotta yeah, but you gotta pass the game to get to the wheel.
That's a
So,
good point.
what's your or that or Plinko? I said a Plinko when I was little, like down my stairs with my stuffed animals. I'd love to bring Plinko back. So you don't want to be entertained. Well, we hope that we're going to entertain our guest this week. We got a lot to unpack from the headline Hangover. We also have this amazing conversation that you and Bryan House from Elastic Path had.
That's right.
They're our show sponsor this week. We're so grateful for them. They were also our NRF show sponsor. And we're going to share some of the segments that you and Bryan had a couple of weeks ago. Is this your Maverick Goose moment?
Yeah, Elastic Path. We talk a lot about when we had this conversation with Brian. One of the things we talked about that's not in this clip, but we're gonna have him back on the show just so you guys know. Um, a lot about the user experience in e-commerce and the role of the user experience. What's an appropriate user experience? What's an inappropriate
Yeah.
user experience? How do you get to that? And so I think that's one of the things that Elastic Path focuses a lot on. And so that segment, we're gonna get to that. But first, I know you have the headline Hangover.
We do. And there's just a lot to unpack here because what would January headlines be if we were not talking about store closings? And it's from our friends at Coresight. They like to kind of keep us on the pulse of what's happening. we typically have like if you had a bingo card for 2025, a lot of the names that you are seeing in the core site analysis of like what's driving store closures and what will drive store closures this year aren't surprising, right? It's Party City, Big Lots, Kohl's, Macy's.
Yes.
I think we're like forecasting a 334% increase in store closures in 2025.
Yeesh.
Do you think it's going to play out that way, Rick, or is this a bit of some not hand waving, but like the world is ending, stores are going to close again kind of narrative?
Hundo P, it will play out this way, and I think the reason is because a lot of these stores were on their last legs already. It's not like a new somebody we don't know about. We're talking about Party City, which by itself is 700 stores. They're already donezo. So
bankruptcy is knocking on the door.
Big Lots, it looks like it's got into a new partnership with Variety. They were gonna go down 900, but then they saved 400 of the stores. It's a little complicated what's happening there. Kohl's is closing 27 stores. Macy's, as you mentioned, is closing 150 stores.
Yeah.
They still have Blue Mercury and Bloomingdale's, which are, frankly, better brands, and I think better properties for them. Blue Mercury, I've always liked that format. I think they do a
great
good job. Yeah.
The store layouts are fantastic. I think it's less of I don't know, like chaotic than a Sephora,
Yeah.
So I really do enjoy that experience.
Speaking of Sephora,
Yeah,
speaking of Sephora, Kohl's put Sephora shop-in-shops in their stores. It did not help them. So
it did not.
It did not.
And that was the leap that Sephora made from JCPenney to Kohl's. And so
That's right.
Where do they go next? We got Ulta and Target. We'll see. So that one's pretty interesting. We'll for sure keep tabs on that and see how things play out. And Rick, you've got some other news kind of happening in our supply chain world, right?
Yeah, the next story, we're going to talk about UPS earnings. And UPS has been in the news a lot. They're kicking Amazon to the curb. That's the big headline here.
Yeah.
Here's what you have. In e-commerce in the United States, Amazon is the big growth partner. Obviously, there are lots of little guys that are growing too, sort of the SMBs, and that's why you see Shopify growing so much, in addition to taking a couple of big partners. The Amazon is still a bulk of UPS volume, 20% of their volume, in fact. Yet it's only 10% of UPS's revenue. And I'm going to guess that it's about 2% of their profit. So if you see like something takes 20% of your, imagine if somebody took 20% of your time and 10% of it you would be unashamed, you'd be like ashamed to talk to your friends about, and it would only put like $1 back in your bank account. You're like, I don't want to hang out with that friend anymore.
No,
because this friend is not
filling my cup.
This is not filling up my cup. It feels like there's a street here. And so here's what I learned on the UPS earnings call. Amazon's contract came up this year, and proactively UPS is like, it's not you, it's me. And
but
we still love you. We're going to take some of your volume, but we're going to reduce it in half over the next 2 years. And so that's really the game that's being played. Like, UPS doesn't want revenue unless it's profitable revenue. And look, I get it.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be the biggest. They're trying to be, quote unquote, the best. Which
profitability is the name of the game in this new world, right?
Correct.
And it's pretty brave territory. Or do you think this is not so smart on their side?
Well, look, I think there's been two approaches. One is FedEx former CEO Fred Smith famously laughed at Amazon for trying to get into logistics 15 years ago. They were like, you'll never get into logistics. You'll have to spend tens of billions of dollars. And, of course, that's exactly what Amazon went and did.
Yeah.
And they said, we don't want Amazon as a customer. We'll fire you as a customer. And so they got out of the Amazon business very early. UPS took a little bit different approach. It's like, look, we can use Amazon to build our network, even if it's not profitable revenue. And so they made a little bit of a deal with the devil. And I think what happened is, over time, Amazon sort of, my read is Amazon took advantage of the relationship.
What?
And they gave UPS all their unprofitable routes they gave to UPS,
Yeah.
essentially, and even the most unprofitable routes they gave to the post office. So there's even that too. But
And force them to stay open on Saturdays.
exactly, and so UPS is trying to get you back by, forcing you to pay for a return if you walk into a UPS store, if there's not a Whole Foods near you or
Yep.
something like that. But still, I think the second that contract came up, it's to me super telling that UPS CEO Carol Tomei admitted on the earnings call, like, this was like she wanted to make sure, like, she wasn't caught on the back foot of the narrative. Like, no, we're doing this. Like, you
Right.
didn't fire us, we fired you.
Yeah, yeah. It's really a smart move on her side, to be open also with the market, the investors, be on the forefront of it, and just put the stake in the ground.
That's right.
This no longer fills our cup. So, Carol, touche, hats off to you. Yeah, Tomei to you. I love that. So you've also got breaking down. There was a lot of, I feel like my LinkedIn feeds were blowing up, as was our e-commerce buzz channel and Slack, all about AI operator. Can you break down what actually is it?
Yeah, I mean, look, OpenAI Operator is sort of taking AI to the next level, and truly, why is it called Operator? Essentially, the idea is right now, AI is kind of this chat brain, and you talk to it, and it gives you responses, or it generates an image, or it does something like that. Operator is almost like AI becomes a remote employee for you and can operate a computer. And so essentially, AI can now, like, use a mouse, use a keyboard. And so if you tell AI to, like, go to Amazon and buy me, not that anyone is going to do this, like, prepare meals for my kids this week, it's going to go to Whole Foods and pick out meals for you. And you can say, like, I'm on the Mediterranean diet and my kid does not, has a gluten,
Yeah.
is gluten free, and AI will incorporate all those preferences for you, and you just go away and come back. And there's a few different modes where you can say, like, hands off, like, go and do it, I don't want to validate it, or I want to check in after this step, or I want to check in only right before you hit the purchase button. And so, and obviously all of this depends on the type of task. Like, imagine if you have any kind of task, like a spreadsheet of 500 things you need to do, and you're like, OpenAI, just go and do all these things.
Yeah.
The idea is that the operator will figure out how to break up that task most efficiently, and have, like, little sub AIs go out and do things, which is kind of creepy, if I'm being honest.
A little bit, but it does feel like my mom hub dream might become a reality.
I know, 100%.
So I feel like we're, like, on the cusp.
It's like a cyber mom hub.
It is a cyber mom hub. Is it going to be like Joaquin Phoenix in Her? And so, like, this woman becomes my bestie and she's doing all these things for me. It kind of sounds like a dream.
Her is 100% happening. It's happening. Like,
okay, it's happening. It's a total sidebar. There was this story about, did you see the story about the woman who had the AI boyfriend?
I did not see it.
Yeah, no, it's like a thing. And she basically manufactured this AI boyfriend via Chat GPT and got in a relationship, and she's married. Anyways.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. I guess I wonder, for a while we thought that, like, Alexa was going to be doing this for us. Remember, their voice shopping was going to be the next thing. So in your mind, is this, like, more legit than that? Or do you feel like it's got some ways to go?
I think it's more legit. Look, they've signed up a number of partners with this, DoorDash, Instacart, and it strikes me that the reason why these partners exist is, like, imagine if you go to the grocery store, you're in North Carolina, you're going to go to the Teeter. I mean, that's just the place to go. And so you're going to go on your stock up trips there, but if you need something like Tuesday night and it's 5 p.m. and you need it by 7 to make dinner, or Brian needs it for 7 to make dinner, then you're going to use Instacart. You're not going to go, like, get in the minivan. I'm just projecting here.
There's no minivan.
No minivan?
No. Rick, you know me way better than that.
Just kidding. You're going to get in the sports car and just kidding. You're going to outsource it to Instacart, and you're going to, like, manage the house, make sure the kids aren't killing each other, and then someone's going to show up on your door with the groceries. Well, to me, this is kind of like what operator is, which is sort of
Okay.
like people who value their time more than their money from some sense, or they're willing to get up a little
Yeah.
bit more money for convenience.
All right. Well, this will
So
also be
it's
really
exciting.
interesting to watch. Yeah, I'm excited to see what unfolds. This will not be the last time we talk about it. So if you guys are doing bingo cards for the Watson weekend, put operator on there. Okay,
Yes.
so Starbucks, I wanted to talk about that because something that AI cannot replace is a
Mm.
little handwritten note. And Rick,
Mm.
I don't know if you saw the earnings report of Starbucks, but we might or may not be a little slow clap for Brian Nichols. You know, he said that back to basics is what was going to help Starbucks really reinvent. And we are a quarter in, and they had a really strong earnings report. They beat expectations, and he really credits these small little things like.
Mm.
For sure, they brought the condiment bar back. They are, doing some different things to the menu. They are offering ceramic cups if you are in
Mm.
a store. But the biggest thing was getting the handwritten name back
Yeah.
on.
So why don't you walk me through? I have a cup here,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
writing my name on it.
Yeah.
How does that translate to revenue?
Rick, you can't put dollars and cents on emotions and feels, okay?
Ah.
This is, we are coming up on Valentine's Day, and Hallmark is a real thing. And I think
Yes.
I think that kind of based on your response, you probably don't get Brit a present for Hallmark or for Valentine's Day. But
Oh.
you just cannot
Oh.
put a dollar figure on what you write down and what it says. When you can just say, "Oh, Jess, I'm here. Jess, here's your little cup," and I walk around, and it's not just my name. I get like a heart. I get like a
Oh.
star.
Yeah, you
Oh,
go,
it's the first
girl.
choice in the barista land. So look, here's the thing. Back to basics is really working, but at the same time, I don't know if you caught on the 27th of this week, there was another article that came
Hmm.
out where Brian Nichols also redefining the customer. And the
Hmm.
customer is somebody who spends money. The customer is not someone
Aha.
who has a Starbucks and chill. And they can actually be
Got
asked
it.
to leave the store. So gone are the days of I get my coffee, or maybe I just buy that little mint. I've totally done that. I need a place to work. I bought the mints. I'm sitting there, and I'm going to bang out a couple of
This is
projects.
like the co-working space,
It's
like
yeah.
star
We don't
working,
need weed work. We need
we
Sparber. Yes.
star or
Yeah, we
something.
star. I love it. We bucks. So yeah, so that's down, and here we go. We're just gonna see what happens.
I love it. This is great. I'm excited about Weebucks. I'm gonna use that for my next time I need to work out of the office.
There you go. So, well, you'll probably get kicked out.
That's great. So I was excited to learn handwriting turns into revenue. So that is our headline Hangover. So thank you for sticking with us. Um, our next story up, we're going to talk about what's happened since COVID. I think you have a cool segment to cue us up here, Jess.
Yeah, we really wanted to kind of go back in our time machine to 2020. We're not yet there from a year over year perspective. There were some rumblings in February. I think March is really where everything hit the fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember calling you, Rick, and kind of doing a wellness check, see
Right.
how you were doing, because it
Yeah.
felt like the world was ending, probably more so in New York than it did for me in North Carolina. There's tents in Central Park, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're like, well, I'm
Yeah.
bleaching groceries right now. Uh,
Correct.
but we wanted to kind of bring this flashback just to kind of understand where have we evolved from COVID and shopping and what's happened, right? Like we're not panic buying toilet paper anymore. We're
That's
definitely not
right.
making sourdough bread anymore. The Tiger King hoopla has like come and gone. I don't think that we've kind of gotten something at that level just yet. Operator AI is coming the next big thing. So has shopping really moved from being something that was experiential and social to really being a chore, a check thing you check off your list?
Mm.
Is it function over form? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. It seems like shopping has become very functional recently. I mean, I think it's almost like shopping um, on that side of it. Like when you go and buy something, you go to Amazon, you click into a thing, you go and hit buy. On
Yeah.
the other side, I think inspiration has become a little bit more whimsical because I think the connection between shopping and inspiration has really shortened
Hmm.
because of social media, because of Instagram shops, because of TikTok shopping. You're always a click away from this like cool thing you saw that wasn't always the case. And I
Yeah.
think the difference is it's not like social media hasn't always tried to get into e-commerce like Meta.
Sure.
That's not always worked so well, but the TikTok personalization algorithm, at least before the last week and a half, which is kind of gonna go bananas. Like I don't know if you've noticed, but before then, it was like the scary personalized,
Yeah.
just in
Yeah.
terms of what it served you. And so, similar to like I don't know, 5 years ago, I would say Facebook ads like got like eerily accurate,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah.
turns out like they were because they were stealing all your information and they had a really good profile for you, and like Apple really clamped down on that.
Yes.
But no one seems to have clamped down on TikTok, I think. So
No. No. It's like even crazier. I feel like, I know, I notice Instagram's also still pretty good. And supposedly the phone isn't listening, but I
right,
gotta say,
it's totally listening.
100%, 100%. I love the social, reels and stuff where the woman walks by to her husband's phone and she's like, diamond ring, Chanel bag, like, because she wants, she's starting to seed the things as we're getting ready for the
Yeah,
holidays.
he's gonna get that. Yeah, that husband is gonna get retargeted.
That's right. Like, who needs a gift picker or a wish list when you can just go and educate your husband through like their social media? But yeah, I do think that it's kind of this interesting thing. What I notice is it feels like shopping for sure has changed generationally as
Hmm.
well. At least from my observations, I love retail, so I still try to get out what's happening in the stores and observe. And there for sure is still where I live a
Hmm.
lot of social shopping happening.
Hmm.
Young girls and guys like going to these outdoor shopping centers, their
Mm-hmm.
meetups, their hangouts.
Yeah.
And while they may or may not be spending lots of cash, they're for sure dropping some things at Kendra Scott,
Yeah.
Rowan, and so it feels like also some of these stores have been created to target that type of customer,
Right.
more so. What do you think? Do you see
I
that?
think it's exciting to almost feel like we're going back to the mall a little
Yeah.
bit, like at least the good malls, not
Yep.
necessarily the bad malls, but like the malls I grew up with were like so bad. I mean, there'd be like the center of it. You have like your video games. You had like your Orange Julius, and
Yes.
you're like your
Borrow.
Benetton, and your Esprit, and your Hot Topic, and
Mhm.
like these stores, um, most of them don't exist anymore.
No.
But the malls were like brown and ugly. They were not like open and inviting, but they were hangout spots.
Yeah, they
And you would
were.
just sort of cruise the mall. Like
Yeah.
you would just get a group of friends and you were like in a pack.
Yeah.
And then you would almost like attack a store. Like you go into a store and like friends just like spread out everywhere.
Right.
And you're just like checking out merch. I still think that's happening.
At least from what I see, I do
Yeah.
believe that that's happening. And I think that actually social commerce does play a role in that
Mm,
too, because there people are out talking about the things that they're doing. They're talking about going into these stores. And so um, it is that dynamic. So I think there are the one hand of you've got the persona you mentioned who just needs things done. Their
right.
time is more valuable than anything else, and so they're willing to spend an extra dollar. They don't maybe say like worried about getting the best deal. They just want it fast and convenient. And there's the flip side of the others that you've got to like go to 4 different stores to make sure you get the best deal just to get food on the table or to get your kids clothed. And then you have this generational thing that's happening where people do experience social shopping and
Mm-hmm.
they're hanging out on the weekends. So it's pretty crazy. Like I still find it's hard to get a parking spot in some of these locations that do attract, and it's more of the outdoor probably experiences. But you're right, Rick. I kind of gone are the like days of the fluorescent lighting and the like heavy racks, and that's probably why Kohl's is struggling.
Yeah.
But these outdoor places that are a mix of, there's work, there's play, there's stores, there's restaurants, there's more to do. And so they become
Yeah.
more destinations.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I mean, I would love to think about Nick Kaplan and what his views on malls are, just given his retail background. I don't know if he would hate them or love them, but we're going to bring Nick in now to kind of dovetail out of this conversation as well as into our next
Yeah.
conversation as well. But, like, are you bullish on malls now? First of all, welcome, Nick.
Welcome, Nick. We're
Thank
so
you for
happy you're
thank
here.
you. Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I love malls.
Let's go to the mall. Do you guys remember that How I Met Your Mother episode where Robin Scherbatsky's like, that's her number one jam is let's go to the
Totally.
mall. It just runs on repeat anytime I hear the word mall. Yeah.
So I briefly attended a soccer tournament before my daughter developed what everybody has, and we left abruptly. But before leaving, I was talking to another parent who was telling me that the day before they had spent 8 hours at the American Dream Mall.
Oh, wow.
They had not purchased a thing.
Oh,
Oof.
that is commitment. 8 hours.
I have not been there. My wife and kids go often. I've heard it's like super dope. It's like there's everything, and I think that sort of is what the mall today serves the purpose of. It's truly experiential, and I think
Right.
you're seeing these incredible lifestyle centers where there's a combination of food, shopping, and residential. I think California, where we used to go a lot to buy our inventory in the early fashion to figure days.
Mhm.
I remember early on seeing in like Glendale,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the Grove, these like
Mhm.
incredible facilities that just felt kind of open
Yeah.
and not so transactional.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So Kaplan loves them all,
Oh,
Yeah.
and
okay.
is bullish on the right ones. I think we have too many malls in America,
Yeah.
so
We are overstored.
yeah.
I think it's been coming down though. So how much more down can we go?
I mean, according to research, like I think I read somewhere, don't quote me, like 25,000 more stores will close this year.
Yeah.
So
It was like 15 in the core site, article. So it doesn't feel like we've hit bottom. At the same time, more stores open. So I think it's around 3,700 that are supposed to be open this year. And how does that relate, Nick, from what you see with e-commerce? We saw that massive upswing, right? And for a while, again, on like LinkedIn, everyone was reposting that stat of, we just accelerated 5 years, in
right.
a few months for e-commerce. Like, how do you think about that? E-commerce is supposed to overtake the world. Like, do you find that they just better weave together the e-commerce and the store experience?
Well, I love that you're so right. We accelerated 5 years until September of 2021, and then we
Yeah.
didn't. So, it's interesting. I had a conversation with someone who is the CEO of the dev shop and the front end experiential support for a client, and we were talking about how this company thinks about stores and e-com as separate channels and acts accordingly. And my goal is to really bring them together and
Mhm.
understand like the symbiotic nature of what it means to operate a business versus businesses. And
Mhm.
so what I'd say is that we're in a mode of, customer, right? And you guys have heard me say this a lot, which is the value of any business is its active trailing 12-month customer file. And so
Yeah.
wherever you can find and connect with those customers is critical. And so stores is really important. And as I talked to someone the other day who works for a very large company and is leaving. And we were talking about stores. It was like she said something like four-wall contribution, and I was like, wait. You have to think about and reinvent what a store means and how it
Yeah.
informs companies about the testing of
Yeah.
products, right? Yeah, I see you saying something. I know you so well, Watson, that I'm gonna stop, which I love to
No,
talk.
no, this is good.
I
You
want you to jump in.
use a word that I think is critical, which is reinvention. And I think especially in the mall experience, but I think online too, you have these um it's almost like the world of the haves and the haves nots. And we were having this conversation with Bryan House from Elastic Path and about the role of mavericks and innovation in a business. And I think this is
Mhm.
probably a good segue into
Mhm.
our segment with him because they spend so much time focusing on consumer experience, and I think this would be relevant to a lot of brand owners in the audience, even agencies and business owners. So we're actually gonna we have a couple of clips that we're gonna talk about, and like at the beginning, we're gonna talk a little bit about the role of AI in customer experience, and so I think that's probably a good place to start. So we really, again, thank you to Elastic Path for helping us frame the conversation. You wanna do
90% of the time, a shopper comes to an e-commerce storefront with a point of view and a thing that they're trying to do. And so how do you optimize those experiences to do that thing so that way they can come in, complete their task and move on with their lives rather than meander around and get lost in that and get lost in your business dynamics, right? Businesses do this all the time where they focus the challenges inside their internal operations and they can't resolve them. They push them out to the customer, right? We used to talk about this when I was in the CMS space where you'd have the brand site and the commerce site because merchandising and marketing didn't talk to each other. So they said, we'll have two sites and we'll just have them under one URL, right? Like it was a perfect example of we can't solve that problem. So we just give you solve it as the shopper, right? So I
Yeah.
still think that exists. The user experience is a place to start figuring out what's the journey your customers actually do. And it's hard, right? You know, it's one of those things where you can get data to pretty much say anything that you want it to, particularly if you have lots of it. So, you know, what's the definition of truth in that world?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about kind of this agent-based UI, and I definitely see elements there, but then, yeah, there's the other side of the coin where you walk into a store.
Mhm.
First of all, if there are people in the store, that's one question. Like, you have a well-staffed store, you walk in, what's the first question they ask you? Is like, "Can I help you today?" What's your first answer?
No, I'm good.
No,
I'm just
I'm
looking.
just looking.
Yeah, totally.
And so, how is this going to translate online to this agent world where we're now expecting people to be very forthcoming about their motivations and intentions? It seems to me that there has to be this. I don't know. I kind of get back to the notion of inbound marketing
Mhm,
that like
mhm.
HubSpot even like pioneered, which is like you have content, you have inspiration that's out there in the world, and to the extent that you're able to get people to engage with it, those are your intent signals, and you're getting information. It's almost like you're getting information without asking.
Mhm, mhm.
And I really think to me that is some of the gold where AI needs to get to, where it can't be this call and response so explicitly every single
Yeah.
time, because I think people will get tired of that. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. You know, with we think about the consumer, we think about like their differences. You know, what has changed. It's pretty interesting. You know, seeing Brian's perspective there. Nick, what are your thoughts?
First, that we finally found someone who may have better hair than Rick.
Oh,
Great hair. Second, yeah, I
props,
think that
Brian.
uh, Brian said something really interesting that continues to it persists in this organizational divide between marketing and merchandising
Mhm.
and how we sort of provide the customer with kind of what they want, where they want. And I think
Yeah.
that, one of the things I said in the last Kaplan's Corner, vis-a-vis like the obit and the rebirth of the consumer, and in terms of like how they were going to shop is, what's gone is like this notion of we're going to meet them where they are, right? Like it was like, oh,
Yes.
we're going to,
Yeah.
now I think it's just like they're going to find us when they want, and we
Yeah.
sort of need to be ready.
You just
And
need to be
so,
here and like hang out and be ready to
exactly.
catch them, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's why what he said is so critical, which is like, we kind of don't know. And as a result, we're almost playing a game of percentages. So if you want to be mono and be e-commerce only, forget about like the challenges with the economics of acquisition and
Yeah.
the sort of non-loyal consumer based on, having to kind of continually engage them. But it's one channel. It's like very, very risky. Stores, e-com, Amazon, TikTok shops, wholesale, you have revenue diversity, you have the ability as well to like be out there for people to discover you when they least expect it.
Yeah. I do feel like
So,
we've gotten beyond in retail these like core divides between not only teams but channel managers and ownerships. There used to be some like knockout dragouts of who owned the revenue, who owned the
Right.
customer, and the infighting that created so much strain and delineation that it actually negatively impacted their ability to execute well. Do you guys feel like we've moved beyond that?
I think no is the short answer.
Oh, maybe I'm dreaming.
We talked to so many customers. It seems
many.
like we never left that situation. However, on the other side, I think one of the critical things that I think Bryan talked about was kind of just the primacy of the customer journey, and like using that as your North Star and working backward from there. And so I think and as part of the five forces, and we talked about it with NRF, the primacy of marketing over merchandising. Marketing is how someone experiences your brand and walks them through that process. Merchandising is like what they're interacting with, and why they're there and what you're about. So that kind of funnel and purchase experience, I think, is critical because most people aren't going to buy from you right now. They're just
Yeah.
want to learn from about you, and Bryan said it better than anyone else. Is like you walk into a store and everybody wants to help you and they jump on top of you, but you don't want help. You just want to look around.
Right.
I mean, I think that, two comments. One, the notion of like marketing is king, as we noted in the five forces, isn't like a supremacy comment, right? It's a collective community comment, which is to say that everybody's a marketer. I can't tell you how many people say, well, I'm not a marketer. Yes, you are. Everybody is a marketer because everybody is a consumer and everybody has a point of view about how they evangelize the brand.
Yeah.
The second thing I think is, vis-a-vis stores, right? Totally agree that it is just so frustrating. Even today, we have so much research for someone to walk in and say, how can I help you? And I remember, the store experiences that I've had over my career, and it's a seminal sort of strategic and training point was always to just be like, hey, like, welcome, or just hello, and then just let them be, right? It's just so obvious. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you guys, but I really wish that organizations would just talk about the collective marketing as an aspiration and a value.
Yeah. I mean, you bring a point about the experience in the store and online. There's a lot of sameness that you see in website experiences, and that's actually a good transition to the next clip we have with Bryan. Talks about just like commoditization, really. Like everything's in a box. The boxes look the same. You go from one retailer to another. It's like, is the logo the only thing that changed here? Like these products look the same. So I think that's a good way for us to get into this next clip.
There's an interesting sort of commoditization that's happening in the commerce space, because like when we go shopping in a physical world, right, brands differentiate based on the experience you have when you walk in the store. But every store has a front door, every store has a back room, every store has a POS system to check out, right? So like there's core things you know how to do when you go into a store. And so you can go in quickly, buy the thing you want and walk out, or you can sort of meander and hang out. Online, that has been accelerated in such that, you know, all anybody wants, best practices and the friction have been ironed out and have been removed. And so now we can go in and buy immediately, right? And we see common experiences that are driven by vendors. And so it creates this really interesting dynamic. Is everything homogenized and there's no brand experience in a digital format? Or frankly, the thing I worry about a little bit is the people that want to experiment and create a brand experience get dinged for that, right? Because then, you know, you look at your conversion versus peers, and the peers are all using sort of standard homogenized tools, and they might be lower. You're like, hey, screw that, we're going back to whatever everybody else is doing. And so it creates this interesting dynamic: is how do you manage and control a brand, create a great brand experience that's unique to you and differentiates you without sacrificing the sort of industry metrics and sort of the expectations that everybody has based on sort of the homogenization of the market.
Yeah, I definitely can see that happening. And some of that is caused by the natural herd mentality we have. No one likes to lose their job doing something stupid or out of the norm, or no one likes to look bad in front of their boss. And so I think somewhat it defines, especially as kind of like technology providers, what kind of customers do you want to have?
This is yeah. Go ahead.
well,
Jess. We're all like
I know.
chomping at the
this is
bit.
Roaring to go, right?
Yeah, I think there's just so much in like really great things to unpack there from what Bryan said. You know, also like there's commoditization, because you raised this too, Rick. It's like no one wants to lose their job. Who's going to take a flyer? Like, let's make the safe bet. You also mentioned, you know, you talked about this before. That's why, you know, Shopify gets pushed down by a board member, because that's like the safe, easy thing to do. And I was wondering, you know, with Shopify, where there's 5.6 million plus stores powered by that platform, you know, there are a lot of the same templates. There are a lot of the same, you know, plugins that get used. Like, is that also driving some of the sameness, because the customer just gets trained now on these like very consistent shopping experiences, so it's hard to deviate from that.
100%, it's driving a lot of the sameness. I think Amazon is driving a lot of the sameness because everyone's copying Amazon, including Shopify, for the record, with one click and all these.
That might be a little bit of a dark day. Like, it's not like Amazon's like crush the whole merchandise
and all these things. But I think the question is, and Nick and I talk about this a lot, is like, who is afraid or not afraid to make a bet? And if you're going to go outside of the box that the platforms define for you, which almost every platform can do, you need to have a vision. And you need to have a willingness to invest and experiment. And that takes a different kind of mindset than someone who just views e-commerce as almost like a pain. Like, we need a website, people need to buy, our stuff is up there, it's done. Now, how much did we spend on paid media? What was our ROAS? Like, am I wrong?
ROAS. What was our NCAC? I think that one thing that's missing, or maybe one thing to add, is, you know, the ability, right? Like, this is not a services business, nor is it a technology business with those types of margins. There's a couple of things I think that consumers just don't understand, and operators maybe too, which is a ton of working capital is tied up in inventory. And you can't be wrong. It kills you if you are. You have a lot of staff, which, you know, I talked about earlier this week on a LinkedIn post about like offshoring, and that's changing as well. And AI, I think, as well, helping. But I mean, I guess what I'd say, I totally agree with you. We do talk a lot about this, which is, when is the way the right way, and when is it the wrong way, or when is it the right time to try to go against the grain, to try to establish a new normal. And it's sort of like the hamburger menu. I mean, the hamburger menu on mobile is like
no one can change it now.
Exactly.
No.
Impossible.
I remember talking to someone like a year and a half ago that's a very well-known brand, and I wasn't working with them. It was just a friendly conversation. It was like, hey, like, why is your hamburger menu on the right? I'm like, that's just not a good idea. Like,
No.
everybody has on the left because that's the way the consumer experiences it. Similarly to your Amazon checkout question. So there is this like duality in me that's like, one is consumers like what they know in terms of checkout, in terms of navigation, in terms of frictionless experiences, and that's important. However, you will never get ahead or be competitive if you're not willing to make what we say all the time, like an asymmetric bet, which is not betting the house, but finding competitive advantages that may be exploitable and
Yeah.
leaning into them.
Can I say, when you talked about when something is wrong, when the words that come out of your mouth are, well, we're complex and that's what makes us special, that's when you need
Oh
to
my
like
gosh.
to have a little check yourself.
Definitely.
I
Look,
think people lack just the lack the people make bets and just don't know how to measure them.
Mhm.
That's a part of the challenge, right? It's like, can we be dynamic enough to say this is working or not working and lean into it, or quickly lean out of it? It's like there's a lot of emotion, which then goes back to organizational priorities, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I definitely think these are all really great points. But I mean, not only do you have, it's very easy to get into the sameness. It's very hard to break out of something that could cost you your job. And I think ultimately that kind of maverick spirit, if your brand doesn't have it, and then you're already dead, you just don't know it yet. And
Yeah.
so you're just on a slow road to decline because you're going to screw some stuff up. And to your point, you're not trying to create complexity for its own sake. That's not the goal.
Yeah.
The goal has to be, who are we targeting? What is the offer? And what value is this adding to the experience at this stage of the buying cycle? There's
Yeah.
so many people who just like, oh, this gets in the way of checkout. Well, most people aren't checking out. Conversion rates, industry average is 2%. So what about the 98% of the people that are just there to learn?
Just want to discover, check some stuff out, and then you got to be everywhere.
To me, that's where the experimentation needs to be,
Yeah.
in that 98%, not in the 2% that just want to click one time.
Right. So we talked about, 5 years ago, COVID, things blew up, lots of stuff changed. We're here. In 5 years, what do you think the experience looks like?
That is a great question. I mean,
Well,
when's
it's
the last time
different.
Amazon and eBay's websites have changed?
Yeah. I got one for you while you guys are thinking about this, because I asked the question, so in fairness, I had a chance to think about it. So what I believe is, we've had this notion with personal shopping, and to the point that you and Bryan were talking about, you walk into a store, you don't need help, but then you got to find the dressing room. You might
Right.
want to know if this is in a different size or in different colors. So I think we're going to see that type of experience translate more online with AI, and there is going to be some notion of personal shopping experience, because people will want to get in and out. They will want to get fast. Like, I think about this in apparel a lot. Like, if I'm intention driven and I've got this event that I'm going to, or I've got, I'm going to see you guys at NRF in 5 years, and I hope we're like killing this stage and we've got all amazing people there. So in 5 years, and I'm going to need something to wear for that, because, the game has got to look good here.
The game is going to be the game.
So
the game is still the game.
The game is still the game. So I'm going to go and I'm going to ask for some tips, right? So I think like someone's going to be behind the scenes, powered by AI, giving me some options. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I'd take it a step further. I think that there's this looming, definitely not pending, kind of peer-to-peer shopping that will happen in terms of just like people selling to people versus the brand kind of dedication. And I think that we'll see a shared basket, and we'll see a lot of evolution, and to your point, how people get help and shop and who they shop with.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
excited to see what happens.
I believe it kind of goes back to something that Brian and I were talking about, which is like everyone needs help. No one wants to ask for help. And I think AI will be super impactful, especially with this generation that grew up on their mobile phones. They don't want to talk to people. They don't want to call anyone. It's like a hassle.
Yeah.
And so I think in those digital experiences, AI will be helpful. Whereas, I saw Marty Armstrong in the crowd. Shout out to Marty, the old cynic in the room. He thinks AI is all hype and BS. That's because we're not the next generation, right?
No.
So we're not the audience for it. And I think the next generation will appreciate it in a different way. My daughter is 1. She's already like swiping the phone.
She's swiping right on her Tinder profile.
100%. So
Baby Tinder.
Baby Tinder.
I think the user experience will elevate, will be different. People will ask for help from AI because they know it's omnipresent. It's always available. And
Yeah.
that's something that no human can ever be, particularly in a digital experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to close. Thanks so much to Bryan, to Elastic Path. They sparked a really great discussion that I feel like we could probably go on for another hour. I know Nick could. He's got so much to say. But
Nick
you know
never
what,
stops
guys?
talking.
The
The clock is
Yeah.
ticking on the weekend, so here we go.
Ready to
that's a
dance.
prop.
It's a prop, people. I'm
All right. We're going to dance now.
We're doing it.
See you next week.
Come find us.
Bye.